Greetings, beloved light warriors. It's Saratoga, and this is our weekly focus card reading for the week beginning October 4th through October the 10th, 2021. And if you're new to my channel, I do this every Sunday so we can reset our focus and our energy for the coming week ahead, and then I do my on-camera videos on Tuesdays and Fridays. Okay, let's get into this week's reading. So we have an absolutely gorgeous card. This card says patience, and this is clearly to me all about our overall sense of timing as it relates to our physical lives, our metaphysical lives, and our ascension evolutionary process. So let's just take a look at the image on this card. This is a beautiful angel. So right away, that says to me that our sense of timing needs to expand to a much higher level than just the clock. And as you can see, she's holding a clock right in the center. So, but also I want to point out that the clock is just a measuring device. The clock itself is not really time. It's just something that measures time, and it measures movement on a physical level in a way that we are able to see it and to coordinate our activities, our things that we do with each other, and coordinate basically civilization overall. So a clock is really a coordination device. It's not actually time, although we tend to treat it as though it is time. And we say, what time is it? What does the clock say? That's how we know what time it is. So it is useful in that sense. But I think what this card is saying is we need to have perspective on how we perceive time and not get so caught up in the clock itself, because the clock will just drive you, to distraction. It can create a lot of stress, can make you feel like, oh, I'm so far behind, and what if such and such doesn't happen in time? And we can get this sort of frantic feeling when we get overly focused on the clock. So it's not about getting rid of the clock. It's not about getting rid of calendars or any of those things. It's more about just pausing and understanding those things for what they are and getting centered in ourselves in a multidimensional, interdimensional place. Now, why is this important? It's important because our ascension process, and I do think this card is very much about ascension, because you can just see it's got such a high vibrational feel to this card. Our ascension process is multidimensional. It is interdimensional. It has many layers. It expands way beyond time and space as we know it on Earth. It's a massive cosmic process, and we want to be able to align with things on more than one level. We don't want to only be able to align with life according to the clock, because that, I think, can become a significant problem. Now, I also want to point out something else very interesting that strikes me about the image on this card, and that is a sense of balance. If we let the clock drive our entire experience, we will most definitely find ourselves very much out of balance, because it's a linear path, and it's like you're always either past or the future, that you're always referencing the past and the future, and that can cause a lot of stress. And I think patience, in this sense, patience really refers to how centered are you in that moment of now? Because I think, as I look at this image, I feel like the whole energy around this beautiful angel and around just the feeling of the card itself and the color and just the beauty and the elegance of it is that it's really about, okay, have your presence emanate from the moment of now on a conscious level, not an unconscious level, but on a conscious level. Have your presence, have your consciousness situated in that elegantly beautiful moment of now from which all creation emerges. And from that place, yes, you can hold the clock. Yes, you can be aware of time, and you probably need to be aware of time, right? We all do. So But it doesn't have to run your life. It doesn't have to control you. It doesn't have to drive your perception of reality. Now, I also want to point out the angel's head. She has sort of what looks like a crown, but I'm not sure what these things are that are coming out of her crown. They could be crystals. I'm not really sure, but whatever they are, let's say that they're indicators, and they seem to be pointing outwards in certain directions. Here is what is so cool about this image to me. When you are in the moment of now, every single moment of now holds within it multiple possibilities of various trajectories, various timelines, especially our individual timelines that we create for ourselves, right? I'm not talking about the big, massive cosmic timelines that we talk about when referencing Ascension, but I'm talking about the individual smaller timelines that we create for ourselves within those larger timelines. So the beauty of being in the moment of now is that you situate yourself in a place that is so centered, that is so pure, that is so calm and peaceful, that you suddenly have available to you a number of different paths, a number of different possibilities, which is really incredible. And this is, this is really quite amazing because right now, the world is so messed up, right? I mean, they're basically, as you can see, the controllers are trying to take down everything that we used to think we could rely on. And so it's a lot of chaos, it's a lot of confusion, et cetera, et cetera. So it's easy for us to start to feel a little bit desperate depending on our situation, because our minds keep wanting to go back to how we think things are or how we think things are supposed to be. It's very much a one-sided perspective in a way. It's kind of like, let's say, for example, you lose your job or you quit your job or you lose relationships or various things happen and you're like, oh my goodness. And then you try to figure out, how am I going to go forward? And you try to figure that out based on what you've already experienced in the past. You see how time-oriented that is all of a sudden? Well, your options are very, very limited, because where you are right now is part of a trajectory that was set in motion in your past. So if you're looking forward on that trajectory and you're saying, man, I don't see how this is going to work out for me. I don't have any ideas. I don't know what to do, or, whatever it is. You can get very stressed out, very desperate. But what happens is you will lose sight of how many other possibilities there are that you're not seeing, because you're still looking on that linear timeline, that linear trajectory that was set in motion prior to this moment of now. So I think this card, when it says patience, I'm going to talk a little bit about patience, but I want to finish this thought first. So when you are centered in this moment of now, notice one other thing about the moment of now. There's nothing wrong ever in the moment of now. Just try it, try it like maybe after you listen to this reading. Just try to connect with that moment of now and notice there's nothing wrong in the moment of now. It's the craziest thing, right? So in that moment of now, when you get centered there, all of a sudden, there are multiple different paths. There's literally an infinite number of possible things that radiate out, possible trajectories, possible timelines that radiate out from that moment of now, just like this angel's crown. And I think it's interesting, it's around her head, the symbolism of that being around her head, because it could symbolize new ideas coming to you, new inspiration, new things that you never thought of before. Those moments of like, oh my goodness, what a great idea. I never thought of that. I could do such and such. That could actually work for me. You see? So it's basically, well, let me talk about patience for a moment. Okay, because patience is a very interesting word. It could really be interpreted in quite a number of different ways. You could interpret patience as, putting up with waiting, like, okay, I'll just wait. I'll just, like you're standing in line somewhere and you're wishing it would hurry up and you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to make a scene. I'm just going to stand here and just tolerate this. Okay. I don't think this card is referring to patience as tolerating anything. I think patience is much more in the sense of the message of this card in the incredibly high vibration of this image. I really think patience is about that centeredness in that moment of now where you are calm, you are clear, you are receptive, you are connected to something much bigger than the physical circumstances around you. And doors can open up to you from that place. So I really feel that this is a much higher meaning for the word patience. Another, I'll call this a lower meaning for the word patience. Let's say you could interpret patience to mean like, well, okay, I know it's going to be 3 months before such and such happens, so I guess I'll just wait 3 months. Okay, I'll agree, I'm going to wait for 3 months. It's just sort of like that kind of low vibe thing. I'll try to distract myself while I'm waiting. I do not think that in this card, patience means waiting. I think it means more how you're oriented within yourself at a much higher level of consciousness and faith and truth and belief and knowingness. I think that's really what patience means in terms of this card. It's about a much higher level of consciousness and understanding also the timing of nature. Now, I forgot to mention at the beginning, but we do have a new moon in Libra on Wednesday, October 6th. And it's interesting because it looks like behind this angel, there is a moon. So it's kind of neat how the moon sometimes shows up in these cards in the same week that we actually have a new moon or a full moon. Anyway, I also want to point out, and I'll come back to that in a moment, I want to point out that she is in a setting that looks like winter. It looks like there's snow on the branches around her. So let's think for a moment, like what does winter look like in nature? In nature, you can look at the trees, you can look at nature in the winter, and it looks like nothing's really happening. It looks like, it's just kind of stopped, right? There's no new growth, there's no real movement happening. It just looks like nothing's really happening, or like things are frozen in place, like, the ice or the snow on these branches. But beneath the surface, there's a lot going on. Beneath the surface, all of nature is preparing for that new life in spring to emerge. So I think really another part of this message is that we want to be in tune with the timing of nature itself, because we humans, we are natural creatures. We're not artificial. We're not artificial like the clock is artificial, okay? We are a part of nature too, and we have our own rhythm, our own timing. So my goodness, there's so many ways you could interpret this card. And as I always say, feel free, you all, if you want to interpret it in your own way, personally for you, please, by all means, do so. But we also have our own unique rhythm and timing. Our bodies have a timing that needs to be synchronized with nature, synchronized with the sun, with night, with sleep, with waking, with movement. You know how in try not to go on too long, you guys, but in the morning when the sun rises, all of the creatures in nature get so active, and they also tend to get a little bit active at sunset too, because there's a rhythm, there's a flow. If you ever watch wild animals, if you have any local wild animals that you watch, you will notice that they have certain activity levels that ebb and flow depending on the light. And plants are very much the same way. But we human beings are like that too. We have our own rhythm that is connected primarily to the sun, but also to the seasons. So I think this card, the message from this card, has a tremendous amount of depth. You could almost just go into it interdimensionally and really get a feeling of so much happening in terms of what this card is showing us. So the clock is at the center, and the clock, I think it indicates, yes, we're on planet Earth. Yes, the clock is the artificial structure that is used to organize all of the activities of human civilization. So there is an acknowledgement of that. But I think another thing I want to point out, I noticed there's light kind of coming out from her center from where that clock is held. So it's like if you have all of those dimensions of timing in your awareness, in how your consciousness is situated, the clock becomes something that you are in command of, because she looks like she's in command of that clock, right? That clock is not running her. She is in complete control of that clock in her reality. So that's how we want to be. Oh, that's so powerful, isn't it? That's just so empowering. Yeah, I don't know if I'm getting this across, but I just had this vision of like, or this glimpse of an experience of like, wow, you know, if we are really centered in the now, if we can stay in that place, first of all, you're very much awake when you're in the now. You're extremely awake, you're extremely conscious. From there, yes, we can go with the clock, but the clock does not run us. It does not control us. We are in command of our use of the clock, which is, I hope I'm getting this across because I'm getting such a profound experience about this. Maybe you guys can pick up on it somehow behind the words. But then you have command of your life. You have command of your activities. You have command of your intentions, your goals, and, you know, making and keeping promises to yourself, which is so, so important in order for you to have the self-confidence that you really need to be able to evolve and ascend to a much higher level of consciousness. So, boy, I love this card. I absolutely love this card. I could just probably go on and on. I'm not going to do that, however, but I want to invite you all to take your own look at this beautiful card and derive something else. If something else inspires you from this card, open your heart to receive whatever else is there, because I feel like we're being offered an amazing experience that allows us to feel like we are bigger than this crazy situation on planet Earth, that allows us to literally experience that we are so much more than what is happening on this planet. I feel like this card is offering that. It's like it's telling, the card itself isn't, of course, but the card is saying that we are being offered an experience right now. And let me just mention about the new moon. I'm not an astrologer, so I'm not going to say a lot about it on that. I'm not going to say anything about it on that level, but I will say this: new moons are wonderful for new beginnings. So let's take advantage of this week, and we can say, hey, we have an opportunity for a completely new experience of timing, of how we perceive motion and movement and the unfoldment of our lives, the unfoldment of our goals, the unfoldment of what we are intending to manifest. And yeah, and one more thing that's coming to me, I just got to add this one more thing about Ascension. I'm also getting a very strong message that we have to remember that Ascension is a natural process. Ascension is a massive process. As I said, it's a massive cosmic process. So we want to be in sync with the timing of Ascension from that macro, ginormous level all the way down to the micro level of ourselves and our inner world. It's all connected as one. We want to be in alignment with that movement, in alignment with that Ascension movement. If you understand what I'm saying, you guys, this is so much more powerful than the stupidity of what we see going on this planet, which is just, it's just you know what? It's really an insult to our intelligence, is it not? I mean, it truly is. So we don't want to ever allow our own identity or how we perceive ourselves to be in any way associated with this primitive nonsense that's happening on planet Earth right now with the controllers and all that stuff, right? So, you know, see it for what it is. Let yourself be bigger than you ever thought you were in terms of your consciousness, your energy, your intelligence, and your mind. And that's got nothing, I always have to say this because that has nothing to do with ego, because, you know, the ego is way too tiny to ever be able to accommodate the truth of who we are. So the ego has no place with who we are. So, you know, forget the ego. It doesn't have anything to do with any of this stuff. Okay, so yeah, I probably should stop. And just what a beautiful card. I absolutely adore this card. Just so you know, I always put the name of the card deck and the author in the description below every single one of these videos. So if you ever want to know, of course, put this one below. And yeah, you can always find out what deck I'm using just by looking in the description. Okay, so hope you guys have a beautiful, awesome week ahead. I'm sending you all so much love. Thank you so much for being here. I love you all. Namaste.